evening, good afternoon, and hello, and thank you for joining. My name is Dr. Avanya Richardson Miller, and I am the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Hackensack Meridian Health. It is my sincere honor to join this, to have the privilege to moderate this esteemed panel that we have with us today. We're going to dive right in just for the sake of time. And I am going to start off introducing the panelists. I will introduce each individually and lead in with an opening question for each panelist, and then we'll get into our dialogue. So first, I'd like to introduce Dr. Simbo Ige. She is the Assistant Commissioner for the Bureau of Health Equity Capacity Building at New York City's Department of Health. She leads the Bureau's efforts to undo structural racism and injustices to advance just and fair health outcomes for the most marginalized New Yorkers. She also serves as the branch director for the COVID-19 community engagement to operationalize the agency's equity agenda for COVID-19 resurgence and vaccination program. This involves ensuring the equitable distribution of culturally and linguistically appropriate information, resources, and opportunities in a manner that is informed by the expertise of the agency of communities. She also works with several strategic partners, including community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and other community leaders to address COVID-related health inequities and to develop models and interventions for improving health outcomes for Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities in New York. And Dr. Ige, I would like to ask your question. First, welcome. And an opening question that I have for you is, can you address the root cause of COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy demonstrated in the Black community and other communities of color?
Thank you for having me, and thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the conversation. So when we talk about equity, we're saying that there are some folks that are having to work harder to get to the same destination as other folks, and that Black and Latino and people of color have to overcome more barriers to get to the same health outcomes as other New Yorkers. So when we talk about equity in the vaccination, we see that there are, in the communities of color that we serve, we see lower vaccination coverage. And the root causes of that are two: barriers to access, making the vaccine available, convenient, easy to understand information so people know what is available, when, where, how. That's one piece of it. And then the other piece of it is trust. When communities of color put on their TV every day, see people gunned down in cold blood, see people arrested, see people suffering, people evicted from their homes, and the government has not risen up to those challenges, it is hard for people to now believe that the government has their best interest at heart. And so when we offer vaccines, people are cautious. And that is a survival instinct that we have in the Black community, that we don't jump, at everything that is offered to us because of the history that we have in this country. So those are the two main reasons driving the hesitancy we're seeing in our communities, the access barriers, and also the issue of trust.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your response to that question. Next, I'd like to introduce Harry Carson. So Harry Carson's 13-year stint with the New York Football Giants is one of the longest tenures in the club's history. He played in the NFC AFC Pro Bowl 9 times and is among the top 250 players to ever play professional football, with his induction as the 231st member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The end of Carson's football career marked the beginning of his career in sports broadcasting. He's co-hosted CNN's NFL preview, appeared on WCBS as a broadcast analyst, and he was a special correspondent for the playoff and Super Bowl. Carson is a CEO and president of Harry Carson Incorporated, a sport consulting and promotion company. He's also authored 2 books, Point of Attack and Captain for Life. Carson has represented the United States as a special goodwill ambassador to France and was appointed by former New Jersey Governor Jim Florio to serve as executive director and chairman of New Jersey Governor's Council on Sports and Fitness. Carson has also worked with the former President Bill Clinton. Currently, Harry is partnering with Hackensack Meridian Health in the role of a spokesperson to create awareness for prostate health, traumatic brain injury, and general health through the Game Plan for Health program, which featured PSA videos instructing the general public to know their stats. Welcome, Harry. And my opening question for you is, what has been your experience with COVID-19?
Well, my experience with COVID-19 really wasn't huge, but it was a skirmish between me and COVID, because last March of 2020, I felt that I wasn't feeling very well. And long story short, I had just a little experience with fatigue, headache, and so forth. Eventually, I realized that it was COVID trying to wrap its arms around me. But I was able to sort of fight it off, and I was better. But from that lone experience, I saw what it was all about. And I was sort of figuring what was happening with the rest of the country. Some people were getting it and dying very quickly. And then there were others who were dealing with it, but didn't necessarily have major symptoms. And I chalked myself up as one who had minor problems, but nothing really major. But I knew it was something real. And what I've tried to do in my experience and with my platform is to talk to people about the issues of COVID-19, but also talk about vaccinations. And I was one of those people who said to myself, I can't wait until something is done, some kind of vaccine is developed to help everybody survive this, because I noticed very early on that so many people of color were being affected by COVID-19. And I just wanted to put myself out there as an ambassador for Hackensack Meridian Health to talk to people in a common sense kind of way and talk about the virus, but also talk about getting vaccinated and not being afraid or trusting the government and so forth. So, my thing is, even though most people know me as a former football player, I think that I've maintained my integrity, my dignity to such an extent that people will trust what I have to say. And so that is why I'm on this chat, because I wanted to share with everybody my experiences and hopefully share with people not to be afraid and to trust in this, because I have had both shots and I am doing very well. I'm traveling at the time being, and everything so far is going pretty well.
Thank you, and thank you so much for sharing your story, and so glad that you've had a positive outcome and that you are now an ambassador and encouraging others. Bringing us to our next panelist, Reverend Gregory Jackson. Reverend Gregory Jackson began his pastoral career at Monumental Baptist Church in Elmira, New York in 1975 and served there with distinction until 1984 when he was called to pastor Mount Olive Baptist Church in Hackensack, New Jersey, where he's labored for nearly 35 years. He encourages them to be generous and giving to needy persons at home and abroad, but to also be politically aware as they seek to do justice for God's people around the world. Pastor Jackson presently serves as the newly elected president of Lot Carey Baptist Foreign Ministries Convention. He serves as part of the Baptist World Alliance and the Baptist Islamic Task Force and is the moderator for the New Brunswick Theological Seminary Board of Trustees. He is the president for Hackensack Fellowship of Black Churches. Pastor Jackson believes in transforming the world into the kingdom of God. He has led Mount Olive in her efforts to be a part of the redemptive work of the gospel around the world. Under his leadership in May of 27th of 2007, Mount Olive Baptist Church dedicated the completion of the 28,000 square foot Logan Family Life Center, a building built to the glory of God and to the service of humanity. Pastor Jackson believes in a gospel that is reflected in everyone's personal life as well as one's social and political life. So welcome to our panel today. I myself have used that center for Howard University alumni chapter.
Thank you.
And so I have a question for you. You have talked about the Black church historically serving as the safety net for people and still fulfilling that role today. As it relates to this unprecedented pandemic that we're fighting, some people feel that vaccine hesitancy is rooted in the belief that the COVID-19 vaccine represents the mark of the beast. And so as our pastor on the call, what is your response to that thinking, and what advice or what words do you have for the community who are, that is a barrier, that represents a barrier for them?
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to be on this panel with such distinguished presenters as those persons who spoken before me. I read some time ago, I think it was a quote by the late pastor of Riverside Church, Sloan Coffin. Hell is seeing the truth too late. And I think we have to be careful how we put things in our minds that will literally kill us. Wrong information, wrong theology, wrong thinking can kill us, can kill our families. And I would argue that, a marker of the beast probably is the virus itself that kills. I mean, I think most of us, if not all of us, know many people who's been sick, or worse, many people who've died. And certainly if you are a pastor anywhere in the United States over this last year or year and a half, particularly early on, there were funerals every single day. Many pastors died. Many of our parishioners died. So much so that we could not keep up with the funerals. We couldn't even have a funeral. So, I think, the hesitancy based on false information is devastating, and that can take you out. So just be careful. First of all, be careful where you get your information.
Yes, that's a powerful statement. Be careful of the source of the information. I agree with that. So thank you so much for that response. I'm going to loop back to Dr. Ige. And my next question for you, Dr. Ige, is how does the J&J vaccine compare to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines? Are there any equity concerns regarding administering the J&J vaccine to the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities?
Thank you, Vonia. First, let me start by saying there are no equity concerns with the J&J vaccine. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices has not, declared any preference for one vaccine over another. So I want to get that out of the way. And then the second thing I'd like to say is all three vaccines do a pretty good job of keeping folks out of the hospital and preventing COVID-related death. So right now, what it means is if you take any of these three vaccines, any of them, your likelihood of dying from COVID is almost zero. So they offer all three close to 100% protection from COVID-related mortality. The next thing I want to emphasize is they also prevent from severe illness, the type that leads to hospitalization. All three do a pretty good job of that. Now, Johnson & Johnson has an advantage because it is a single shot vaccine. So for those who are mobile, I cannot take time off work. I am busy. I am not going to be here in 4 weeks. I'm just passing by. For those who are homebound, who are not able to leave home, in mobile vaccination settings, like when we do partnership with houses of worship at the church, for example, it's easy to come there, get the vaccine, one and done. So that is the advantage of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. For the other two, Pfizer is the only vaccine right now that is authorized for use in children 12 years to 17. So in that regard, Pfizer is preferable if you have a child. Moderna does the same thing that Pfizer does. They're both mRNA vaccines. They work exactly the same way. And so when people want to choose, from the surveys that we have done, Black communities particularly, they are very interested in being able to choose. And so what we have done differently is on the website, you're able to toggle by type of vaccine and choose what type of vaccine you want. And we are now printing flyers, getting information out to our communities that these are the three vaccines, these are the differences, these are the similarities, so that we are able to make an informed choice. There was a scare with Johnson & Johnson that has triggered a lot of misinformation and anxiety in the Black community because there was a pause for a while to investigate some blood clots. So it is true that there is a potential risk of blood clots with Johnson & Johnson, particularly for those who are less than 50 years of age, but this risk is very small. And this information is provided to anyone who chooses Johnson & Johnson, so they're able to make an informed decision, and they're also offered other options. But again, this is very, very rare risk, and a lot, over 7 million people, 8 million people have already been vaccinated with Johnson & Johnson and doing well.
Thank you. And thank you for that very valuable information in comparison of the different vaccines. I'm now going to go back to Harry. And so, Harry, my question for you is, in your community outreach efforts to promote the COVID-19 vaccine trials and the vaccination, what is your message on the reasons why participation in these trials and the vaccine are important?
Well, one of the things about being a really good football player is you remember what your last opponent is capable of doing, since you've already played the game and so forth, because I've already experienced it, but also have sort of witnessed how this virus has torn through the African-American and community. And you try and make sure that you take advantage of opportunities as they move forward. And so with the vaccine, I feel more confident, I feel better, I feel safer. I feel, I'm still wearing my mask, I'm still standing 10 feet, not 6, but 10 feet away from people to maintain that social distancing. But I know what it has done. As Reverend Jackson has said, we all know people who have passed away, and these people have passed away through no fault of their own. And, you know, Joe Biden says that every time he talks about the virus, but that is correct. Through no fault of their own, they're no longer here. We are here. We should learn from what has taken place and try and protect ourselves so that we can protect our families. And, you know, with that, I have to go with the vaccine. I have to follow science and not pretend that it's not going to hit me. It could hit me just as a professional athlete. It can hit me just as hard as anybody else because I'm an African American. I have underlying conditions, so forth. And members of my family, we also have underlying conditions. And so you have to do what is best for you. And if you feel like you don't want to take the shot and you're fearful, quite frankly, let me just say, be brave and do it. If not for you, do it for your family. I mentioned that I was traveling. I'm in South Carolina. I have not seen my grandkids since March of last year. And so to see them and be able to hug them and just to be around the people that you love, it makes you want to live and it makes you want to not take life, you know, just think that things won't happen because it can happen to anyone at any time. And so I want to encourage people to take advantage of the opportunities. I'm doing that with Hackensack Meridian. I'm also doing that with NFL alumni, working through the Center for Disease Control. And in any way possible that I can get my words out there to influence people, I'm going to do everything that I can to help in any way that I can.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those words of encouragement. So important now, especially since May 19th, New Jersey reopened and we don't have to wear the mask anymore. So I hope that people are paying attention.
I'm still wearing my mask.
Yes, yes, I am too. I think that's a smart thing to do. So back to you, Reverend Jackson. So if you can elaborate on the details of this collaboration. So the Bergen Coalition of Black Clergy Against COVID-19. What have been the most effective strategies implemented? And what impact have those efforts had on vaccination hesitancy in the community? And this would be from your perspective.
I think that the greatest impact was Clergy Day, when we organized a day and had all of the clergy come to Newbridge Medical Center. And I don't know, there was probably 30 of us, I think, on that particular day. And then just getting information about all of the clergy, or the African-American clergy in Bergen County, from the smallest congregation to the largest congregation. And sometimes, you know, we tend to focus on those larger congregations, but they're, you know, I've been here for 37 years. I learned a new congregation I didn't even know during this particular time, being intentional about reaching out to every single person who calls himself a pastor or clergy. And from that, it broadened out beyond the African-American clergy to the Latino community, to the Lenape Indian community, to the Muslim community. We should say the faith community, because early on, it didn't get any involved early as well was helpful, because at that time people were dying all over the place. It wasn't hard to get pastors to get on board. So many of our colleagues died. My own pastor and his wife died. Several other pastors that I know in the northern New Jersey area died. So the problem was, as the doctor said, access back at that time. Now access has changed quite a bit in Bergen County. You know, today we have a couple of African-American churches where shots are being given out in Bergen County, and then there schedules others over the next few weeks. So I think, that's and then partnering also, I have to say, partnering with the local community action program was very helpful to us, in particular working with seniors in terms of technology, when you had to fill out all of that stuff by, computers. Many of us really struggle with that, but the Greater Bergen Community Action Program assigned some staff, helped us tremendously, and was a real blessing to getting people vaccinated.
Thank you so much for sharing that information. Hopefully that we have those on this call today that are taking some notes of some things that they can turn key. So we have a question in the chat, and this person is asking for what are some positive methods to use when trying to influence family members to become vaccinated without pushing information on them? And I'll open that to any one of you that may want to chime in on that.
Right. I can say something from our experience. We have found that personal stories and testimonials are the most effective, particularly for members of the community, family, faith leaders, respected leaders in the community that people know, who say they have been vaccinated and why they have been. I think that resonates the most with people, rather than trying to, load them with scientific information. A lot of the things people are seeing on social media is, oh, if you get vaccinated, you will be infertile. If you get vaccinated, something bad will happen to you. So the more people who are vaccinated are able to demonstrate that I'm fine, I'm doing well, the more people realize that, these things are not necessarily true.
For me, also, I think family, and I think Harry mentioned grandchildren, and the fact
Right.
that we had not seen our grandchildren for like almost a year. And then at this particular point, I am the head of the Jackson family worldwide. I am the oldest one in my family. I'm 70 years old. So I have a right to speak. They may not listen, but I do have a right to speak. And we have lost two of my cousins, young men with underlying conditions, and two of my aunts. We didn't lose them, but they were very, very sick. And I guess, I am not known to be the most patient person in the world, but I try very hard when I'm talking to people not to push. I might push my theology on you, but I don't push whether you should have the vaccine or not. I try to be patient and let people come to it on their own.
Well, for me, Rev, I am sort of the patriarch of my family as well.
Okay.
And I lead by example. When I was being introduced, Avonia mentioned that I wrote a book, Captain for Life. I'm a captain for life for my old teammates with the Giants. I'm a captain for life with NFL players who have relied on me to be their advocate for better benefits and pensions and so forth. But I'm also a captain for life for my family, because I take the leadership role and I lead by example with my family members. So if it's about nephews and cousins and people within my family, I lead by example. And, if I need to share with them stories of people who have had a profound impact in my life, and they're no longer here as a result of contracting COVID-19, I'm going to do that. There are members of my family who have experienced it themselves. And thank God that everybody has survived, but we had a couple of close calls within the family. So when you see it up close and personal, then I think people understand what's going on. Oftentimes, you don't want to take any kind of action until it affects you. When it lands in your household, then you're going to move. But until it does land in your household, you're going to do everything that you can, perhaps, to not take the shot or be vaccinated. That's not the right call as far as I'm concerned. I'm not one about pressuring anyone, but you need to disperse that information and let them make the decision. And if anything happens to them, then, you know, they were forewarned. And with everything that has taken place, to see, Reb, I was watching when this virus was back in Europe and what was happening then. And this might sound funny, but I started stocking up with toilet paper way back before it even got to the United States, because I wanted to make certain that I was prepared. It's like, you know, a hurricane coming from the Caribbean. You got to be prepared. And I was well prepared, but quite frankly, you can't prepare enough for this. And I think the most important thing that you can do is to protect yourself now that there is a vaccine available. Protect yourself, if not for you, for your family's sake.
Yeah. Was there something else you wanted to add to that, Reverend Jackson?
I just said amen.
Oh, okay. And I second that. And I just say that I echo everything that the panelists have said here today. And I myself started out my entire family as a family that was 100% vaccine hesitancy, you know, last December and into January. And then, you know, as you start to watch more of what's happening, and like you said, you see more people, you know, more people that are being impacted by it. I then said, you know, I work for Hackensack Meridian Health. I have to educate myself about this and make an informed decision. So I think that that's one of the key things. And we've heard that here today. There's all this information is out there. Educate yourself and make an informed decision. And for me, also, it was like I've heard here with, Harry mentioned, I have underlying conditions. You have to be, you have to face that and acknowledge that and accept that. And then kind of look at and almost do like a cost benefit analysis of, okay, here's what I know is likely going to happen if I don't get this vaccine. Now, here's what I know the probabilities will be if I do get the vaccine. And then I also started learning more about long haulers. And that to me was when I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm getting vaccinated. And that kind of led the way. I heard here a common theme too about taking that leadership in your family and being the role model. And that has an influence. And now today, my entire household is vaccinated. And with that, Dr. Ige, I would like to ask you if you are able to speak about long haulers, because I think that's something that our community needs to hear a bit more about as they're making a informed decision.
Thank you, Avonia. You are exactly right. In making a decision, people often compare risk, benefit, and convenience. So one of the scary things about COVID is not only that it is a very, very unpredictable illness. You cannot tell who is going to get what form of disease. There are some underlying conditions that make the risk higher, but you cannot, with the vaccine, you know what you're going to get. With COVID, you don't know what you're going to get. And one of the side effects is the long haul or long COVID syndrome, where we're seeing people months after they recover from the acute illness still continue to have symptoms, including mental health symptoms. We're seeing more cases of depression, more cases of anxiety, more cases of schizophrenia post-COVID. So in addition to the physical symptoms, including problems with the heart, problems with breathing, extreme tiredness and fatigue, months after people have recovered, there are some people who are still not able to go back to work. So these are some of the reasons why we feel, getting protected with a vaccine is just the easier way to get the antibodies. Taking the risk of saying, I'm going to get COVID or I'm going to develop antibodies when I get COVID is just too risky. So we encourage folks that, weigh the options, get all the information and make the right decision.
Thank you so much for elaborating on that, Dr. Ige. And I think that that is an excellent message that for us to wrap up on today. We've come to the close of our time here. It has been my pleasure and my honor to moderate this esteemed panel. And I want to thank you, Reverend Jackson. I thank you, Harry Carson. I thank you, Dr. Simbo Inge, for all that you have added here and shared with our community. And I just want to also encourage all of our participants to make sure you stop by and visit the Hackensack Meridian booth at this virtual summit here today. And again, thank you for your time, and please continue to advocate each and every one of us. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Ron.
having us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ari. Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe, everybody.
Bless
Take
you
care.
all. Stay safe.
I will be in contact with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
All right, bye.